All right, this is a tutorial on using the LightMapper app, and to begin, you'll need your phone connected or casting to your projector. So when we first boot up the app, it's going to ask for your email. Just does that the very first time. Then you'll be able to go to New Setup to begin the process of your first projection mapping. Immediately, you have the artwork selection menu. So by default, it's set to filter by everything available. You can scroll through and take a look at what we have. You can also change it to filter by the sculpture, the artist, the collection. And collection is kind of like tags. So you can see there's a few different categories in here with some different types of art. So to start, I'm just going to do a simple setup on this door. So I'm going to start with this toxic Goo Door. So when it's selected on the right side, you'll see that you get some different information. The artist that made it, the collection that it's in, the duration, and the file size. So every time you download something, it's going to be storing it locally on your phone or your iPad. You can also remove it. So for example, let's go to one that I don't have yet. Let's see. Okay, so I don't have that one. So you can see it says download. So just click that and now I have it and it starts playing. You can just remove it if you're worried that you're running out of space on your device. All right, so we will grab this door, and then this is the first part of projection mapping, which is aligning the grid onto the surface. So for me, that means I'm aligning this onto the door, and you're just grabbing each corner and dragging it. And now this is a good example because you can see that actually I'm dragging the dot past the bottom. And so I need to get all the way down there. So what you can do is with this left side, you can select that bottom left corner and you can just keep nudging it down. So that allows you to control it in case you run into exactly what I just ran into. All right, also on each of these menus, you can collapse them here if you don't want to see it, if it's in the way. So I'm just going to drag this one down as well. Something like that. And then this one up over here. And I'm just going visually. I'm just looking at the door in my living room here. So I didn't have to do anything special with the projector. Oops. As long as your projector has the coverage on the surface that you want to project on, that's pretty much all you have to make sure. And that also it's in focus. So I'm just going to bring this one back up a little bit. Just want to start seeing the bottom of that goo. Okay, that's it. So go back down just a little bit. Left. And you'll see because I'm dragging the corners that sometimes you have to go back and adjust each one again, because it kind of, one corner drags the other side a little bit out of alignment. If you have artwork that goes all the way to the edges of the frame, then you don't run into this. But because this door is centered in the middle, every time I move a corner, it kind of pulls the entire grid. So now we have it lined up. And if you need to visualize it without the grids, you can just do a preview like that. And so we can just collapse all the menus here. And we can get kind of a little preview of what this is going to look like. I'll just bring back the menus. All right, so on the left side, you have an undo button in the top left. So if I move something and do it accidentally, I can click that and it'll come back. It's not super effective with the nudges because it just is a one-step undo. If you click full reset, the entire thing will go back to default. And so you can undo that. All right, we'll get into some of the other things on the right side later, but I do want to go over the transforms. So these function in a similar way to the nudging, but they allow you to adjust along an axis. So width, it's obviously getting skinnier. I'm just going to put it back here. And see, this is when the undo button isn't really helpful because I clicked it like 20 times. You can rotate by using 2 fingers in the middle. However, if you need to do slight adjustments on the rotation, you can do that on this right transforms as well. All right, so once we have this the way we want it, we can just do save and continue. So that first step was all the calibration, and now you're getting into the post-processing effects. So the app is constantly being updated with more tools, but currently there's a few things. The first one is warp painting, and this isn't really a great example for what warp painting does, but I'll still show you. So you get a brush size here, and I'm just going to crank up the strength. And then you pick the direction that you want to warp the video in, and you essentially just start painting on the screen. And you can see it warps it. So this kind of allows you to do interesting effects if you want to try to play around with your space differently. It also is really useful for aligning small details in artwork on sculptures. That's why it's in the app. You can clear your warp paintings with this trash can icon. All right, and then I'm going to go down to color. You can see when I click a tool here, the left side changes to show me the parameters. So we can adjust the hue, change the color of the layer. I'm not going to talk about this top modify all grids yet. We'll circle back to that. But these are pretty self-explanatory. The overlay, this is the order of operations as well within the functions. So if you saturate it down and then change the overlay color, it's going to be identical to whatever overlay it is. But if you leave that saturation up, it's actually going to be combining this orange and this color. So you might get some unexpected effects. Again, there's a trash can. You can just reset everything there. All right, moving on to the next tool we can show with a single layer is the speed. So all these videos are loops. You can turn up the speed or turn it down. For this one, I think it's just designed to be played back at 1x, so I'll leave it. And the other thing to note is the play and pause. So if I pause this and save it, and now if I go back to the main menu, and if we just, instead of clicking new setup, we do load latest, you'll see it's going to load it exactly how it was, and it's saved with that pause state. So that's a way that you can use videos like images. And when you're finally done setting it up and you would like to present, you'd like to just display the work, you just click hide controls. And then you can just tap on the screen to bring the controls back. So that was just the beginner look at the app and a very simple setup. So now I want to go back and add a little more complexity to this. All right, so we'll save our changes. And then grid setup is that first calibration step that we were on. So this is where you add artwork and get things aligned. So the first thing is we're going to add another grid at the top here. And you'll see it brings in whatever artwork you last had. So I'll change the artwork here. And I want to go to the fairy world and grab this mushroom. I'm going to select that. And now I'm just looking at my door. And I'm going to put this mushroom sprouting out the side of the door. Just like this. Okay, maybe down here looks cool. Yeah, okay, I like that. All right, so I think it would be cooler if it was actually behind the goo. So to do that, you see the layer order here on the right side above the transforms. So if I just click the down arrow, it's going to push it one layer back. So it doesn't rearrange. You can see the two grids I have up at the top here. When you click them, it flashes to show you which one that is. It doesn't rearrange anything up here, but it does change the depth and the ordering. Okay, cool. So then I think we can add another grid and we'll change the art. I think this time we want to, actually let's just scroll through everything and see what stands out. I want something behind the door panels that would look kind of cool. So I think I'm gonna go grab one of these new ones from, I think these are Mantissa. It's got some super crazy stuff. This one might look cool. Let's try this one. All right, that looks wild. So what I want to do with this is not going to really make sense until we get to the next step. But I just want to make sure it's covering the entire door. And I can drop it down so it's behind. All right, and then I just want to put it so that a cool part is in the door. And maybe, actually, it doesn't all need to be in the door because we're just going to be putting this in the panels. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. So I want a little bit less water. Bottom panel. There we go. All right, let's try that. So now I will save and continue. And in this step, what I want to do is go to the masks. And I want to add on the left side, click the plus button for a new mask. And so what a mask is a collection of shapes. So by default, it adds a square shape. If I click the shape library, you can see which one's selected. So if I change that, you can see the mask shape updates. So we actually do just want a square to begin. All right. And then we only want this square affecting that last artwork we added. So that was our third grid. You can see at the top, by default, it's on for all of our video layers, but we're going to turn it off for the first one and off for the second one. So now this mask is only affecting our third video. And so now what I'm going to do is, looking at my door, I am going to mask out each of these little panels. All right. And so now we want to leave this in mask 1. We just need another shape. So I'll just add a shape. And then I could, do the corner adjustment again. But a little trick is, if I remove the shape I just added, clicking the minus button, if I just hold on shape 1, well, with shape 1 selected, if I hold, then it's going to give me a duplicate here. And I can just, oops. If I can click in there, it's kind of small. Maybe this isn't a good example. Oh, you know what? Actually, this is a good example. Okay, wait. Shape 1 now I was accidentally messing with. Okay, so back to shape 1. Okay, so hold and click, it duplicates it. So the way the app's set up is you don't actually have to click within the 4 corners. You can click anywhere on the screen. And so I had forgot that. And I was trying to click in between the 4 corner pins and I couldn't get it. But you have to explicitly, it's the same way with the grids on the first step. If I just go back and show you that quickly, you're choosing which grid you want to move around up here. And then it doesn't matter where you click down here. I'm clicking on the bottom of the screen. It's still going to move whatever one is selected up at the top. Just go back. All right, so I'm going to go back to the mask tool. I'm going to go here and then click and hold. Drag that down here. Okay, and click and hold. Drag that over here. Start to see it take shape. And some of the corners need a little bit of adjustment because of the angle that the projector's at. Okay, and click and hold. This down. Hide that one so I can get to these corners. Duplicate that and move it over here. And it looks like this corner needs to come up a little bit. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna save that. And then I'm just gonna go to work paint so that the corner pins go away. All right, that's looking pretty neat. I think that this layer, just this last layer we added, so the third one, could be a little bit more saturated. So, and maybe a little bit more pink. So for a lot of these controls, like color and background key and speed, you'll see at the top on the left, it says modify all grids. By default, that's on. But if you turn that off, you can choose which grid you want to adjust these parameters for. So right now, I would like to adjust grid 3. And I want to start by just increasing the saturation to see how that looks. Okay, maybe not that. Let's see if we add some pink. It's too saturated. I'm just trying to kind of like match the mushroom a little bit. Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, so say we like that. I'm gonna save that. So something else you can do with the masking is you can invert this mask. So by default, it's an additive mask, meaning the video will only display within the shapes that you place, right? But if I invert it, the video will play everywhere except for where you have the shapes. So what you can do with this is we could add another mask here. So this is additive. Now this is subtractive, but we need another mask that's additive that would actually be around the inside of our door. And that way, if we adjusted our grid, you can see that there. So save that. So now it's only playing everywhere except where the panels are, but the top is messed up. And that's because if we go back to the grid setup, you'll see on our third one here, it's not going all the way to the top of the door. And so this is where the grids kind of become a little too much. So you might want to just turn those off. But on the third one, so now the masks are in place, right? And so if I go and move this third video, the masks don't move. So you can adjust things after your masks are in place. So we can save it like that. If you wanted to look at the original results of this first calibration step, you can toggle in the top right, display all effects. So if you turn that off, then this is back to square one before we did any post-processing adjustments. But in our case, we definitely want to see that. So when we'll save and continue, and you'll notice that we lost our other video layers, and that's because this mask 2 is set to be affecting all 3. So we have to turn that off. So there's kind of the final result. I'll just hide the controls briefly so you can look at it. That's starting to look cool. So I'm going to save the changes. So now what we could do is go to mask 1, which has all these shapes, and we can click and hold on this, which is going to duplicate it. All right. Do you see when I click it, it kind of does a highlight for you, so you can see which mask this is. So we're now on this one. If we turn the invert off on that, and we just turn it off, so it's not affecting anything, save the changes, then go to grid setup. Let's add one more. Add something else. So now this is going to be the artwork within the panels. So we've got crazy bubbles. There's bubble water on the door. So what would we want in the panels? Maybe... Cool. Maybe this one, to be honest. Let's try this. Some crazy particles. This is going to be a trippy door. All right, so we'll put that And now I'm looking at my door in my living room, and I'm just making sure that this is covering the panels, right? All right, so save and continue. And then go back to the mask. And then on mask 3, we just want to apply that to 4. And then hide the controls. And yeah, that's looking pretty crazy. I guess the only other thing to show is the background keying. So by default, all of these objects have the background keying turned on, and that's the reason why we're able to have this mushroom behind the goo with the edge of the video being where the goo is. It's essentially making it transparent, because without that, so if I just go to our grid 1 is the goo. If I turn it off, you'll see we lose a lot. And that's because the video that came in, is actually on a black background, not a transparent background. So with it on, this masks out or keys, uses like a color keying, kind of like the same concept as green screen, but it gets rid of like pure black. And this tool is going to be updated to have a little bit more control. But what that means is you can add, for example, particle systems. So I'll add another grid. So turn the grids off for now. And change the arc on this one. And I want to grab one of the fairy world pieces. There's this particle system. And so I just gonna want these particles like coming off of the mushroom here over the top of everything. So that looks pretty cool. I'll save and continue. You can see what that grid looked like. And if I go to the background keying, and if I go to the last grid we just added, if I turn that off, that's really what the video layer is. It's a particle system on a black background. So it's just something to note that you sometimes want to turn that off, but only in the case where you don't need to see behind it. And I can just play around with maybe the saturation. Oops, it was the wrong layer. I want to change. Yeah, here on this one, make the particles more saturated. Right here, they're kind of small, so they're easy to lose. More pink. And the other thing I can now demonstrate is, say there is a layer that you don't want moving. So maybe the panels in the door, which I believe is grid 4. So like you have the controls up here to modify all grids or not. Undo that. I think that didn't actually work, so I'll have to figure out a fix for that. But well, I'm going to. So sometimes if it does get messed up, rather than saving, we can just go to the main menu and we can go load latest, and we can hope that it loads it at a save point. that wasn't messed up. So that worked in this case. There's little bugs like that, and they will be getting fixed. And mostly that was just an edit undo bug. Sometimes, you know, if you're working on individual things and then you turn it on to modify all of the grids get updated to whatever the setting is. So I think that's what happened. But what I wanted to show is if you turn off on the bottom by the play bar here, the play pause, if you select a specific grid and pause it and save it like that, that will stay true for just that grid, right? And so we can toggle through each one, and we could grab the play bar and adjust. You can see the goo is like changing. So this is all like real time timelines per grid here. So you can see 4 is still paused. 2 is going pretty fast because it's a very short loop. That was the mushroom. Yeah, so that's pretty much the LightMapper app. This is version 1.5.4 or 1.5.3. And if you go to the main menu, you can go to your save setups, and the latest one is always, you know, the one you were just working on, and you can rename it here. Actually, door. And then that'll just automatically save. You can duplicate setups if you just want to like have a variation with maybe different art. So if we duplicate this and then open it, then we could just go to the setup stage, and we could, let's see, we could change the art on some of these. So maybe we want this guy. It's interesting. This guy. Try this one. Go here, and we could change the art of that. Maybe. Actually, I don't know when you change the art or something paused. I don't know what's going to happen here. So let's find out. Okay, so it's still paused. But I don't know what it would do if the layer didn't have the same length. Hopefully this tutorial is enough to get you started. Oh, the last thing I should show is in the main menu, under the settings here, there are 2 options. So the edge smoothing is a temporal-based smoothing, and it's good for the edges of masking and transparency. It gets rid of the flicker, but in high detail visuals, there might be situations where you want to turn it off. Screen resolution is also by default set to high. If you're noticing that you add a bunch of different visuals and the app crashes, it's because you're maxing out your GPU. And so you can turn this setting down if you need to. Also, if your device is just overheating or anything like that, you might want to try turning it down. You can also update your email here. So let's turn edge smoothing off. And this is a global setting, by the way. So this is something you have to turn on and off. It's not per project. So if I do a new setup, this is a good example. Actually, let's look at it with it on. Okay, so new setup. Select, this is a grain simulation. I'm just gonna make it really big and get rid of that and save it. All right, so you can see what it looks like here. And I don't know if you can notice the temporal smoothing, but it almost looks like a motion blur or something. So now if I go and turn it off, save, load latest, controlled. Now when you look at it, it appears a little bit more crisp. And so this would be a situation where you might want to turn it off. But if we load our old project here with it off now, what you might start seeing, and it's clearer on the screen recording than it is on the projection, but some of the edges of the masks are actually pretty low resolution. And it's actually not as bad as I thought it would be. So maybe that doesn't always need to be on. Anyway, folks, that's it for this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions. Link in the bio. Write in the comments. I'll hit you back up. Yeehaw!